protesters know the only way activism works is to get people on your side. Carlos and his classmates just proved how successful organizing is to force change.
So what are the lessons learned from the LIU lockout, and what impact may it have on labor issues across the U.S.? Joining us is Richard Wells, who studies these issues and is a professor in the Center for Labor Studies program at SUNY Empire State College and the Harry Van Arsdale Center for Labor Studies. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Emily Drabinski is coordinator of library instruction at LIU and secretary of the union LIUFF. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, we do have to add that we also invited a representative from LIU, but they did not follow up on our request. An exciting 3 weeks. Okay. Can you start us off, I guess, with the conversation, Richard, about why this lockout in and of itself was so unexpected and remarkable on the face of it?
Well, I think as some have already noted in the news coverage of this, that this is probably the first time that a lockout has taken place on a college campus of unionized faculty. And the reason it's unusual is that it is a tactic, but usually for, in a more standard blue collar kind of working. Yeah, working, a factory, a coal mine, what have you, when negotiations are going badly or whatever, there's a lot of resistance on both sides, or there's a lot of resistance from management and they want to make a move, they want to force a contract down the throats of the workers. This is something they might do, is lock them out. But it was very unusual in this, and I think caught a lot of people by surprise and got a lot of attention because of that.
Well, historically, we know that lockouts tend to be just bad PR and oftentimes sort of, reverse on themselves. Mm-hmm. But in the last 6 labor negotiations with the university, mm-hmm. The union has decided to strike mm-hmm. 5 out of those last 6 negotiations. So in response to that is why the university decided to do the lockout to avoid a strike. Is that mm-hmm. correct?
Well, that's for sure their argument, right? Okay. They want us to believe that they had no other choice but to lock us out. They had another choice, which was to bargain a fair contract mm-hmm. with us. That was an option. They never mentioned that as a possibility. But, we'd been in negotiations since April. The administration had moved almost not at all. Mm-hmm. And I don't think that we were asking a lot. We were asking for parity with our faculty at post, mm-hmm. For the removal of some work rules that would have transferred management control of the classroom from academics to management. We didn't want that. And we wanted to maintain strong wages for our adjunct faculty. They didn't have to lock us out. They didn't have to fire 400 people the day before school started, right? They could have instead given us what we were asking for.
So clearly in that list of demands, nowhere did I hear resign Dr. Klein. So you had some grievances. You were working back and forth with the contract. These were the main sticking points. When did it turn from those issues to a no confidence vote in your leadership there?
Oh, I think that had been brewing for a while, for quite a while since she arrived really on campus. A lot of us were concerned about the direction she was moving us. She definitely comes from a corporate background. She came in, fired a lot of people who didn't have union protections. She has refused to negotiate fair contracts with the other unions on campus. So that was brewing for a while. The first time I met her, she came to a faculty member, and a member of the history faculty asked her about her support for the liberal arts, right? And she said, we'll continue to support the liberal arts, or we'll continue to support history as long as history can demonstrate it is relevant, right? So she clearly has a corporate model of education. And so the no confidence vote had been coming for a while. Our colleagues at the Post campus took a no confidence vote as well.
135 to 10 by the faculty senate.
Yeah.
So, Professor Wells, we're looking at this, let's get into the sort of big historic vote and contextualize it now. The influence of corporate culture onto the sort of what a lot of us see as rare air of these college campuses that are incubating young people and thought leaders. Is that just the way things are going now?
I would say yes, that is the trend, certainly. I think you are seeing, the historical track, I think, for a college president would be often to come up as a faculty, maybe even a dean, and then up through president. But we are seeing increasingly presidents that act like CEOs, and often have PhDs in business administration. It's a much different mindset.
Yeah.
And there is, across the board, in higher ed, much closer attention to making things work more efficiently, cranking out graduates, and not only cranking out graduates, but cranking out graduates that will step into well-paying jobs, regardless of what the labor market's doing, and regardless of whether there are any of those jobs. So there's a whole new set of pressures on higher education. And what we're seeing, certainly at the LIU situation with the lockout, and with academic unions and faculty unions and whatnot across the country, with academic labor generally, is resistance emerging in various forms against this, corporatization of the university. And there's lots of phrases that describe it, but it is definitely a trend.
It's something that we've kind of seen in this city in the context of Department of Education heads. We saw Joel Klein, who famously ran the department for a while.
I think what we have seen happening in K through 12 public ed with the quote-unquote reform movement, stresses on accountability, test scores, various metrics to prove that students are learning what they're supposed to be learning, which is met with great resistance by teachers and communities and teachers' unions, is now moving towards higher ed in its own way, but it's the same sort of, I think, pressures.
What are the next steps as faculty comes back to work?
A question for me?
Well, this next contract is extended just until May 31st next year. So we're going to be right back at the table again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's an affective dimension that, I was just in my first meeting with the dean of the library post-lockout, and just the wrecked feelings and connections between all of us is going to take a little while to get over. Materially, the next step is to negotiate a new contract. We don't have dates set yet for that, but I think that it will happen soon. And then we also need to get Klein out. And so I think some administrative heads need to roll after this. I'd like to see hers and some others that facilitated this unprecedented lockout that has done untold amounts of damage to the students who arrived. And even if it is a corporate model, I'm just purchasing a credential, the customer service implications of what they did, it was just terrible. So, I think those are the three things. First, we had to get back into the classrooms, and we've done that. The next thing we need to do is negotiate a fair contract, and then the third thing we need to do is get the principal administrators responsible for this nightmare out.
So what about the people who observe and say, all right, you got your contract, you're secure for the next year, now you want to get rid of the president? Is this just dancing on the grave? Are you guys taking a victory lap? Or is this a necessary step to really ensure the best level of education for those students?
We have a contract extension. We don't have a new contract, right? No part of me sees any evidence that this president is going to negotiate fairly with labor. Not from the way she's negotiated with other unions on the campus. There are 2 fewer unions than when I arrived there since she got there, right? She busted the janitorial staff. She busted the security guard union. So negotiating fairly with her, I think, is going to be a real challenge for us, and I don't have a lot of faith that she's going to come to the bargaining table willing to compromise.
We were just, while we were watching the clip, you were saying that Carlos is just one of your favorite people right now.
Love Carlos and all of his, Kianda.
But in a lighthearted way, can you really just tell us what it means to have the faculty, well, not the faculty, but the students step up to bat for the faculty in this way?
The most telling part of the part of that piece that I loved the most was Carlos showing my colleague Deborah Mutnick how to work the megaphone.
That's what you were talking.
Right?
That's what you were laughing
So
at.
Carlos is helping Deborah work the megaphone, and I think all of us on the faculty learned a lot from the students about the power of organization and organizing yourself to have an organized response. I mean, it's certainly something that we did as a faculty union, but watching the students sort of organically come together and organize around their own grievances. Because this is about us, but it's also about them. They have a right to an education, They have a right to have their tuition dollars get for them the same thing that the tuition dollars get for, the much wider student body at Post. And to watch them rise up like that was really inspiring and beautiful.
Well, I have a quote from you. It says, we made a really clear statement that you can't run a university without faculty and without students.
Yeah. I mean, it's just that's the core of it.
Yeah,
Carlos,
universal truth.
Carlos and I are the point.
What are the legacy, or what is the legacy piece that you think is going to follow 1 year later when there is a workable contract, or just from now on?
Well, I mean, I'll let you speak to the specifics of the contract, but I think, one of the legacies of this, and it's, for students of labor, they sort of understand this a little bit, but I think what's important about this is these are issues of that have been percolating, that academic workers have been struggling against for some time across the country, and this lockout, and more importantly, I think the resistance to it involving the faculty and the students really thrust this into the public eye, and a lot of labor struggle is looked at from one side as a series of sort of private complaints about workers, but actually they're really public issues. And what this did was thrust this into public and said these are public issues that affect students, that affect communities, and not just the workers that we're talking about. The other thing is that that these are, I think, faculty are and other people that work in universities are service workers, and the connection to the I'll say consumer in quotes because I don't think a student is a consumer. I think, but to the community is right there, it's close, and that is an enormous source of strength for this kind of worker. And it was showed profoundly, I think, in the clip with Carlos and the students walking out. I think that's very, very important.
Before we finish up, can you just tell us the relationship between, or on a national scale, between adjunct professors and the trend to sort of bring them in to sort of balance out the budget? Can you just speak to this trend?
Well, that's also been happening a long time. I think there are far more adjunct faculty than full-time faculty. The number of full-time tenure-track faculty is dwindling, and it's sort of the first, in this effort to make education. And that's been going on for a long time. So it's an enormous problem. It is a challenge for unions that have both adjuncts in and full-timers in the bargaining union. But as LIU showed, it's more powerful when it happens, and it's something that needs to be worked out in ongoing communication within. But I think the plight of adjunct labor has been in the public eye for a while now. I think this puts it back there and links it up to a lot of other things too. So I think it is a very significant moment.
All right, Emily, we're going to give you the last word before you run back across the street and get to work today.
Yeah, I have a group of students waiting to learn about the cumulative index of nursing and allied health literature. I'm just real proud of what we were able to do. We showed that the power we have comes from collective organizing, and I think that would be the legacy that I hope this leaves, is that when we come together around shared grievances, we can get wins. And hopefully we'll be able to keep doing that.
It's a teachable moment right there.
Problem-based learning. Yeah.
Thanks you both for being here. We appreciate it.
You're welcome.
An amazing story.
Yeah. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.